Good morning, everyone. You are welcome to the first lesson of CRP 305, which is crop genetics and breeding. I still remain your facilitator, Alaude Yetunde. And in the lesson today, we'll be learning about crop breeding. We want to define what crop breeding is, the purpose of crop breeding, and why are we so emphatic about plant breeding. We want to know about that. Also, in the lesson today, we'll be talking about the causes of biological variation. And also, we want to learn about the plant cell division, and mitosis. We'll also be learning about gametogenesis and fertilization. This promises to be an exciting class, and I hope that we'll enjoy it. Thank you and have a blessed day. You're welcome once again. Like I said in the previous slide, I still remain Alaude Yetunde, and I'm your facilitator. My email address is on the screen. And you're welcome once again to the first lesson of CRP 305, crop genetics and breeding. And in this lesson, you're going to learn a lot. This CRP 305 is a 2-unit course, and it requires full participation because you're going to be assessed for your participation. And the way this facilitation is going to work is that I post my videos online. You, the students, will go and watch the video. You also read your course materials. So when we meet on the class, when we meet online, what we do is that we review what you have read. So I'm not going to be doing all the talking. You are going to contribute, tell me what you have read, and tell me what you do not understand, so we'll be able to treat it better in class. So that is how it's going to work. I'm not going to repeat everything I'm saying right now in class tomorrow again. I will just post my video earlier. You go and then you listen to it with your course materials, and we'll meet in class to deliberate on what you have read. Thank you. Piece of introduction, we want to define crop breeding. And crop breeding basically is an art and science of changing and improving plants genetically. So I'm going to be using crop and plant breeding interchangeably because they are the same thing. Crop is a plant is a crop, and it is a branch of agriculture, just like we have horticulture, we have animal science, we have all manner of branches of agriculture, we have agronomy, we have so many. So please, this plant breeding is also a branch of agriculture, and what it does is that it focuses on the manipulation of plant genes, plant heredity. Okay, so they go to the plant at the gene level and they manipulate it to come up with new and improved plant varieties which are useful for the society. And this plant breeding is a deliberate effort. It's deliberate, it's not natural. Okay, so what human beings do is that they deliberately go there. The plant breeders, I mean, those are the people that do plant breeding. They go and then they manipulate the genes in different ways to an advantage, of course, not to a disadvantage. So all this story about what will happen to crop breeding, blah blah blah, it's just a myth, because what these plant breeders are doing, they're doing a great job, and they are making better things out of the environment. So the professionals who conduct this task are called breeders. They are plant breeders. And so, like I said, it is a manipulation of plant attributes. Why is this plant tall? If it is tall, is it better than as it is tall or is short? So you try and manipulate those characteristics, those attributes, their structure and composition, and make them more useful. More useful. It's important to note that you make them more useful to humans. Also, there are many purposes of plant breeding. Why do we do plant breeding? And the first one is to obtain or develop varieties that are efficient in use of plant nutrients, because most of the plants nowadays are usually very deficient in nutrients. So what the breeder does is that they improve the plant for their nutrients. So they make crosses and get better and highly nutritive plants. And it also gives returns of products per hectare. Yes, because when this breeding is done, the yield per hectare is usually greater, higher in you know in folds. So it brings greater returns. When the farmer goes to the farm, he gets his money, the farmer is happy, the consumer is happy. So that is one purpose of plant breeding. Also, to improve nutritional quality. The vitamins, there are some maize that are higher in vitamins than others. So what the breeder does is that they improve the quality of the crop, improve the minerals of the crop. So that is another purpose. Also, um, it's adapted to the needs of the growers and the farmers. The farmer goes to the farm, he plants his seeds, he gets his bumper harvest, so he can plant and he can sell them and get his money. Also, the consumer that is buying something of quality, buying something that is very high in nutrients, and is happy at the end of the day. So it's a win-win situation on both sides. Also, you get crops that will be able to withstand conditions of cold, heat, drought, or flooding. Yes, that is very important to note, because at the end of the day, when you do this breeding over some years, so over many years, you get varieties that they are what they call stable. So you can plant them in different places and they will still get bumper harvest. You also have resistant or tolerant to pests and diseases. So what the plant breeder does is that they get this variety at the end of the day that is usually resistant and tolerant to plant diseases. So these are the properties of plant breeding. Plant breeding, why is plant breeding so important also? So it's important because one, it addresses the world food and feed quality yield. So it's different when you're eating something. It's different when you're eating something that is packed with nutrients, that is of quality. So this is what it does. It addresses it. When you have improved varieties, then you have high quality products. And it also addresses food supply needs for the growing world population, because right now, if I'm right, if my statistics are still intact, the population of the world right now is 2 billion. So how do we feed with the population with the few plant products that are around? So we have to do breeding so that we can get materials that are high yielding and can feed the growing population. You also need a variety that will adapt plants to environmental stress, such that when there is no rain, you can still plant your crops. They will do well with little water. When there is no sunlight, you can plant your crops. When you have manipulated these genes, so they perform based on the environment. So that is also important. The fourth one is that you need to adapt crops to specific production systems. Yes, there are different forms of production systems. You have the monoculture, you have the monocropping, sole cropping, mixed cropping, so many of them. So what you do is that you adapt these crops so that they will be able to grow in every form of environmental and production system. You also develop new horticultural plant varieties. Yes, you need a flower with a kind of color that you want. You can breed for it. All you have to do is to manipulate the genes, and then you get your horticultural products, your flowers, your fruits, your vegetables, and you develop new varieties entirely, which are better than the parents. And the sixth one is satisfying industrial and other end use requirements. Yes, this is important because right now industries are being they are close to getting shut down because of inavailability of raw materials, and most of these raw materials are usually plant based. So what happens is that you do plant breeding and get enough raw materials for all these industries so that they can thrive. So that is why plant breeding is important. Moving on, we want to talk about what causes biological variation. Of course, variation, anytime you hear variation, all you think about is differences. Variation means differences. So what causes differences in plants? Why is one plant short and one plant tall? Why is it that one maize plant will produce more than two cobs and one will even it will be difficult before it can produce one cob? So what brings about these differences, okay, in biological variation? So for example, in the yield, in the height, pods per plant, different traits, different attributes. So why is it different? Number one is the genetics. So genetic is talking about the genetic makeup of that individual. What did the parent transfer to his offspring that is being passed from generation to generation? So you as an individual, you are as a result of your genetic makeup and the environment and the interaction between the genetics and the environment. So you are talking about genetic constitution of an individual plant. That is what is passed from the parent to the offspring, from generation to generation. That's the first point. And also the environment, because sometimes you see a fruit here in Nigeria, you see how small and sweet and juicy it is, and then you get to abroad, you see that it's very big, juicy as well, and sweet. Why is it? Why is the difference like that? The environment plays a very, very important role. Okay, this environment here in Nigeria is kind of warmer than the environment abroad, which is cooler, colder. So these differences is what brings about biological variation in plant traits. So you are talking about the environment, that's where the crop is being planted. And in this environment, there may be availability or lack of water, nutrients, insect diseases, and sunshine. These are climatic effects of um, crops. The effect of the climate on crops. When you see a plant that is grown in of soil that is very, very is highly nutritious, dark in color, very rich, they put fertilizer, there's enough water, enough sunshine, enough rainfall, enough of all the climatic conditions, you see that the plant will grow well and be healthy and smiling. But if one of these things is lacking, then you will see the effect on the plant, because the plant will be stunted and very, very unhappy. So that is the role of the environment on the plant. And then you have an interaction between both the genetics and the environment. And the interaction talks about the combination of the genetics and environment on the physical appearance of that plant. So differences you see in plants, the function of the genetics, environment, and interaction between the genetics and the environment. And talk about that mathematically in this simple formula here, we have the VP equals to the VG plus VE plus VGE. So the V here stands for the variance or variation, and the P here is for the phenotype. That's what you can see, the outward appearance of the plant. That's what you can see. So what you can see here is a function of the genes that are inside that plant and the environment where the plant is being cropped, and the combination of both the genes and the environment. So that is what this formula is saying, that there is this is what you see. This VP, this phenotype is what you see, and it is due to the combination of all this. So when you're talking about the genes, that is the additive um that's the additive portion, and the environment is the dominant portion, and the interaction, which is the I, is also a combination of both the genetics and the environment. So this is the simple formula here. You can see the environment is where the plant is planted, genetic constitution of the plant. So that is just it. Now, having said that, we want to talk about crossing. What does crossing mean? We have discussed what plant breeding means, why plant breeding, what causes biological variation. So we want to go deeper, and we're talking about crossing because you cannot talk breeding without talking crossing. So what exactly is crossing? It's simply transferring of pollen. Pollen is the male part of the plant. You transfer it from the anther. It's the anther that brings out the pollen, and then you put it on the stigma of the same plant. Okay, so what you're doing is transferring pollen from one plant, putting it to the stigma of the same plant or a different plant, and this can be done by man. The transferring can be done purposely by man, by plant breeders, or by nature. Sometimes you can leave nature to do the selection itself, and then you're talking of wind. When the wind blows, it blows pollen all over the whole place. You can carry pollen from Abuja to Kaduna. You know, it can go that far. And then by insects also, when these insects are attracted to colorful petals, they come and then they do the pollination where they are trying to get nectar from the plant. So that is what crossing is. And crossing is a phenomenon where the breeders create variation. So these breeders, because of this crossing, they create all manner of crops at the end of the day. You do crossing by yourself, at the end of the day, you see differences, all manner of crops. So the breeders cross to create variability in crops. So we're talking at the cellular level now. We know what crossing means. We want to talk about this plant cell. And this simply is the smallest unit of life. You have known that since your secondary school, that a cell is the smallest unit of life. And all living organisms are composed of these basic units, which range from simple unicellular structures of bacteria, protozoa, to complex structures in plants and animals. And the picture here, this is what a plant cell looks like. You can see the outermost part, which is the cellulose cell wall, very rigid. It's the one that gives the plant cell its shape. So that is the outermost part, that's the cellulose cell wall. And almost immediately inside, you can see the cell membrane. That's a lighter shade of green. Is the one that kind of is the next to the cell wall. Okay, so it's there to cushion the effect of the cell wall on the internal part of the cell. And then you have this liquid inside, which is even a lighter shade of green, which is the cytoplasm. That is where all the division takes place. It is just a fluid that is inside where all the other um, components of the cell float in. You can see the food vacuoles here. That is where food is stored. The vacuoles, very large. Then you can see the mitochondria here. This is responsible for energy. That's what gives the plant cell its energy. And you can see the Golgi apparatus here. You can see it here. This is the endoplasmic reticulum, which is responsible for respiration, So that is what the endoplasmic reticulum is for. You can also see the chloroplast, which gives the plant its green color. You can see the center, which is the nucleus, and inside the nucleus is the nucleus. This is where the chromosomes are. So this is where heredity takes place, genetic division and all that. This is where it takes place. This is where the activity of genetics takes place, inside the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, that is where you have the chromosomes and all that. So this is what a plant cell basically looks like. We have the amyloplasm, the perixome, so many plant parts of the plant cell. So this is what it looks like. It's important to know what it looks like, and that is what we have. Now, talking about the plant cell, of course, you have to talk about cell division because that is what the process is all about. Okay, cell division, because every part of the plant is filled with cells. We have billions of cells in the plant, and even human beings, we are all filled. Even one single finger like this, before it can form, you have a lot of cell division going on. You have billions of cells inside organisms, inside plants. So cell division process is important, and it's a process through which cells reproduce themselves, okay, and multicellular organisms grow, okay. And the process of cell division can be mitosis or meiosis, So when these cells start to divide, they divide and then they form daughter cells, just an exact replica of the mother cell. Divides when it gets to a certain stage, it just bursts open, it divides into daughter cells, and that one too grows, then gets to a certain stage, divides again to daughter cells. So what you get from the division is a smaller cell, which is the daughter cell. And following the division, newly formed daughter cells grow rapidly again to the original size, and then it divides again, and the process goes on and on and on for life. For life. So cell division is really a process of duplication or multiplication. Still talking cell division, the most fundamental part of the cell division is the replication of the DNA. Yeah, that is what you find in the nucleus. Okay, the DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, which must occur before any changes in the early stage of mitosis. So these processes are complex, but they can be explained. Okay, they occur in stages, and the two interrelated processes that are involved in cell division are mitosis, which is the nuclear division, and the cytokinesis, which is the changes in the cytoplasm. So what happens first is that the nucleus will first of all divide, and also everything inside the cytoplasm will have to change and divide also. So we are going to be talking briefly about these processes. Talking mitosis now is a process of cell division, and it is continuous from time to time. And the first thing you see is the cell beginning to divide until two daughter cells are completely formed. And this mitosis, therefore, is a mechanism, okay, by which new cells are formed and by which the cells retain identical chromosome numbers. They are based on the organism, you have different chromosome numbers. In humans, for example, we have 46 chromosomes. In some plants, you have 12, some 13, so depending on what you have in that organism. So you can see that new cells are formed, and these cells retain their identical chromosomes, identical chromosome numbers, and heredity factors before and after every cell division. So every cell still has its full chromosomes. We are talking 46. Then after the division, you still have 46. Now you have divided by 2. If you are dividing it there, then it's not mitosis, it's meiosis, okay? So because in meiosis, that one, the cell division is into 4 daughter cells. So that is a different process entirely. Now, this video explains the complex process of mitosis. I will be showing it in class, and I want you to pay attention to it, because when you talk, you have to illustrate with videos so that you understand better the process of mitosis. You have the 4 different processes. You have the anaphase, the telophase, the prophase, and okay, I think I misplaced interphase somewhere in between. So there are different stages of this mitosis, and you see them in this video. So I will play it in class. Now, having talked about that, we have learned what crop breeding is, the importance, and what causes biological variation and mitosis also. So I have a class activity for you. I want you to define crop breeding, and I want you to state 5 importance of plant breeding, Also, you list 5 purposes of plant breeding. And what is that thing that causes? What are the 3 basic things that cause biological variation? Also, what exactly is mitosis? So I will just keep quiet for like 15 seconds so that you can be able to answer those questions by yourself. So moving on, we want to talk about gametogenesis and fertilization. So what is this process about? We have talked about mitosis, about the cell division. So what next at the cellular level? What next? Then you can talk of gametogenesis. That's the formation of gametes, formation of the male gametes, the female gametes, and the fusion of these gametes is what is known as fertilization. So you have the male gamete coming together with the female gamete, and the fusion of this produces an embryo, which is called fertilization. So that happens in sexual reproduction. You know, there are 2 types of reproduction. We have the sexual, we have the asexual. So we are talking sexual reproduction now, and it entails transfer of gametes to specific female structures. We have the ovary, we have the ovule, we have the stigma. Those are the female parts of the plant. So you're transferring it to the female structure where they will unite with the male to form an embryo, which is the miniature of the plant that you are working on. So this gamete is formed, like I said, in the process of gametogenesis, and they are produced from specialized diploid cells. You're talking of 2 end cells now, called the microspore. So the microspore mother cells are the ones that form the anther, and the megaspore mother cells are the ones that form the ovary. So the microspore is the one that forms the anther, which is the male gamete, and the megaspore is the one that forms the ovary, which is the female gamete. So the fusion of both of them is what is known as fertilization. I could tell you to differentiate it, so you should be able to know the differences between these terms. Still talking gametogenesis and fertilization, the microspore, like we said, is derived from the mother cells that are haploid. They are just N. Okay? And by dividing, by mitosis, when mitosis occurs, then they now produce the male gametes or gametophyte, which is the pollen grain. That is the male. Okay, and in the case of the female part in the ovule, 4 megaspores are formed. 4 megaspores are formed by the process of meiosis. Okay, and at the nucleus level, the nucleus of the functional megaspore divides 3 times by mitosis to produce 8 nuclei, and one of these 8 will eventually become the egg. So you can see how this division process is complex, but at the end of the day, you see the result. So the female gametophyte is the 7-celled, 8-nucleate structure called the embryo sac. Okay, so this embryo is the female gametophyte that is formed at the end of the day, and the male gametophyte form is the pollen grain. So when these 2 come together now, fertilization occurs and a miniature plant is formed, which is the plant that is formed at the end of the day. So talking pollination and fertilization now, pollination is simply the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower. For example, in maize, we have the male part which is on top, that's the pollen, it is on top of the maize. Then the female part is that one, that silk, that cob that you peel the back of the corn from, that silk that is inside, that is the female part of the corn. So we are talking pollination now when the pollen, which is up, is shed on the silk, which is down. So that is pollination. And this transfer of pollen to this from anther to the stigma is achieved through a vector or pollination agent. So a pollination agent may be the wind, maybe insects where they are busy eating their food, they are transferring pollen all over the whole place. Even mammals, even human beings, when you eat, when you go to the field, you move around, you carry pollen all over your body. Okay, and birds, where they are eating their fruits, their seeds, they carry pollen all around. And also flowers have certain features that suit the pollination mechanism. Yeah, some flowers are brightly colored, they have bright colored petals, and these petals kind of attract insects, and then they come and feed on the nectar of the flower. In the process, they do the pollination process. And some flowers are sticky, they are not attractive, they are sticky, but they just stick. Some pollen just stick to your body and you carry it around, you won't even know, or stick to the animal. So they have various features. Some are rough shaped, some are smooth, all manner of features that encourage pollination mechanisms. Now, when compatible pollen, that word compatible is important, because if it is not compatible, then fertilization cannot take place. If the pollen is not compatible, or the pollen is not, if it is sterile, then it cannot fertilize the female part, which is the stigma. So the pollen has to be mature. The stigma also that wants to receive the pollen has to be mature, it has to be receptive. So there's this pollen tube that grows down the style to the microfilar end of the embryo sac and carries the sperm or the male gametes. So what happens is that it now gets it there and it brings it up to the stigma. Stigma now receives it and pollination and fertilization takes place. So pollination is just the transfer. Fertilization is the main thing. So that is what happens there. The tube penetrates the sac through the microfill. So one of the sperm unites with the egg and fertilization occurs. So the simultaneous occurrence of two fusion events in the embryo sac is known as double fertilization. Yeah, it's just like when fertilization occurs at the same time, two simultaneous, just like when you have twins in human beings, two eggs are produced at the same time, and then two sperms to fertilize the two eggs at the same time. So that is called double fertilization. Now, on the basis of pollination mechanisms, plants may be grouped into two mating systems. On the basis of pollen mechanisms, plants may be grouped into two mating systems. We have the self-pollinated plants and the cross-pollinated. So when something is self, that means it can fertilize itself. It occurs in plants, not in animals though, but it occurs in plants. They fertilize themselves even before the flowers open. Okay, they fertilize themselves, and this happens, okay, when species accept pollen from their anthers on the same flower. You see on the same flower, like hibiscus, for example, the female part is on the same flower and the male part is on the same flower. So when they are mature, the stigma is receptive, it accepts the pollen, fertilization takes place. So when you have the both um, female and male parts on the same flower, that is what is called autogamy. And the flowers of necessity must be bisexual. They have both the male and the female part on the same flower. So it even pollinates before opening. So you have an example in hibiscus, you have that in okra too. You have it in beans and so many other crops like that. However, there are some plants that are cross-pollinated, and these cross-pollinated species, those ones can accept pollen from different sources. When you say different sources, doesn't mean that you now carry pollen of maize and go and be using it on cowpea. No, it's not going to work. What they are trying to say is that you carry pollen from one maize plant and take it to another plant that is also made somewhere else and use it. So that is cross pollination. So accepting pollen from different sources. That is how you see all manner of variation everywhere. So those are the types of pollination mechanisms based on the mating systems. That I have another class activity for you, and that is to differentiate between gametogenesis and fertilization, and also define pollination and fertilization. So I want to thank you very much for today. I hope you have gained a lot, and I hope to see you in class. Like I said before, I will try and get my videos early on the platform. You, the student, go and listen to the videos. Then when we meet in class, we will deliberate on what you have studied. So it's better for you to read and come to class, so you don't come to class empty. I don't want to do all the talking alone. I want us to communicate. And we also communicate on the discussion forum also. It's very important. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and God bless.